Good morning, everybody, and welcome to April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2025. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I better shut off my phone. All right. First thing on our agenda are our minutes. As usual, gentlemen, do we have any additions or corrections?
Okay.
No, good. Go ahead.
I moved, excuse me. I moved to accept the proceedings of the Board of County Commissioners for Montezuma County for Tuesday, March 25th, 2025 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the proceedings of the Board of Commissioners, Montezuma County, Colorado, March 25th, 2025. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Don. Planning is next. Okay. And this being the time set aside for a public hearing for the variance and after-the-fact variance selection, Kim, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Candelaria.
Here.
Commissioner Lindsey.
Here.
Commissioner Copenhaver.
Here.
Administrator Anderson.
Here.
Attorney Tarnowski.
Here.
And Kim Purcell, County Clerk. Notice is hereby given that the Montezuma County Board of County Commissioners will hold a public hearing for review and discussion of the addition of a variance and after-the-fact variance section to the County Land Use Code. The hearing will be held Tuesday, April 1st, 2025 at 9 a.m. in the Commissioners' Hearing Room, Montezuma County Administrative Offices, 109 West Main, Cortez, Colorado. Interested persons may attend and give input. Information may be obtained from the Planning Office online services at https://co-montezuma-co.smart-community.com public home. Under Other Services, Documents icon. You may also contact the Planning Department at 970-565-2801 with questions. Dated this 25th day of February, 2025. Kim Purcell, Clerk, Board of County Commissioners, Montezuma County, Colorado. Published in the Cortez Journal on Wednesday, February 26th, 2025.
All right, thank you, Kim. Okay, Don, would you go over these changes for us one more time?
Sure. So this is the final draft that we came from with P&Z. We had their input on the basic structure and language in the variance, after the fact variance. We reviewed several counties, parts of their code, parts of their wording that they liked, converted that to more resemble the language in our land use code. Sent that to you guys for your oversight and for Attorney Tarnowski, who did the final draft as presented there. There are the proposed fees based on calculation of time and costs through the planning office. P&Z had a little different recommendation for a fee schedule, but this one's more in line with what Stephen said that statute required.
Correct, and these are just the application fees for the variances, whether it's
Correct.
up front or whether it's an after the fact.
That's correct.
Okay. Questions or comments, or what would you like to add, Stephen?
I can just add some different things here. One of the main things we're trying to do here is just define, just kind of walking through the different parts of this, proposed addition to the code. Section 9104 is really just defining what a variance is in our land use code. And essentially, the most important part of this definition is that, the board may grant variance requests pursuant to the standards detailed below when owing to special circumstances or conditions such as exceptional topographic conditions, narrowness, shallowness, or the shape of a specific piece of property, including consideration for easements and rights-of-way. The strict enforcement of the provisions of the regulations would result in a peculiar and exceptional practical difficulty to or exceptional and undue hardship upon the owner of the property. So that's what these regulations are meant to address. We've got some sort of procedural provisions about how these applications are supposed to look, that they go through the planning department. The planning department has an opportunity to review and assist in completing the application, and then ultimately it would come in front of the board meeting as the Board of Adjustment, which is basically the body that reviews these applications. And we've got a proposed list of criteria in 9104.3, which is on the lengthier side, I think, frankly, but basically what these proposed regulations are laying out is that the Board of Adjustment can only approve a variance application if all of the following criteria are met: that the proposed use is a permitted use under the current zoning designation. So that gets to the idea that variances are not a way to, do uses on the property basically that aren't allowed under that zoning designation. That there exist those exceptional circumstances I mentioned earlier in the definition, that the strict application of those criteria would be unjust or result in an undue hardship, that the difficulties or hardships are not self-imposed, that the variance wouldn't adversely affect other property in the area, that it would not change the character of the zoning in the area, and that it does not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Montezuma County pursuant to the master plan and any other agreements that apply. So it's kind of a long list, but it's really kind of a step-by-step version of that longer definition up front for how the board's supposed to evaluate these requests that are essentially requests, as we define them now, to not strictly apply the land use code out of principles of, fairness and giving landowners like a similar opportunity to develop their property. And then I do have something else to say on the variance fees. So these fees, would need to be included in the county's fee schedule. When we adopt this, Don, you mentioned, that there is a difference in the proposed fees for a variance and after the fact variance. Could you just talk a little bit about why those are different, just for the record? Why the county's costs of processing are higher for the after the fact variance?
Sure. So I don't know in every case, but probably 95% of every after the fact variance is because we have found a problem with the property, not because they volunteered to come in and disclose that. So in the process, we're not just taking their information and making sure it's in alliance with the variance section as depicted there. We have to figure out when the building was built or go back over different imagery, find out when, what, how. So you're basically doing an investigation, which takes, we figured, twice as long as normal process in getting the application and the applicant. Applicants don't readily just volunteer to come in and disclose everything. We pretty much have to send them a certified letter, see if we can get a response one. So, there's a lot of time and effort to address those after the fact situations.
All right, thanks.
Okay. So then, questions or comments before I open this up to public comment?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well then, since we are in a public hearing, I will open this application to the change of the land use code to public comment. Anybody wishing to speak for or against this, please come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record prior to providing your comments, and you may address the board at this time.
Good morning, Commissioners, folks. Good morning, Kim. I don't know how, my name is Alan Mays, 21693 County Road 21 in Lewis. The situation with these is more for existing developments, I guess, because anything new should be brought really clear to developers, home buyers, property buyers. So it's going to be properties that exist, and usually these things occur because neighbors get along with each other, and somebody wants to build an outbuilding, and so they go out there and do it, and they build it, and then they have no thoughts of land use code because they've been in that situation out there for a long, long time, and then they realize that things change in their lives and they're going to sell it. And when they go to sell it, they find out that the outbuilding that they put in was too close to the property line. And those kinds of conditions, self-imposed, I don't know how that term gets used, but getting the word out to people to say, you know, if you're going to do something to your property, that's all well and good. It's your property and you're going to do it. So, but when they do a development that's going to be a hard structure, and I mean, they put in a foundation, they do a framing, that takes in a little more effort than a lot of folks think, but they can do it themselves. And so I think these variances are going to have to be one-on-one, but that term self-imposed, they are doing it themselves, so I don't know how you determine when that fee that's going to be mentioned is going to be put to these folks that do that when they go to sell their property. And the landowner next to them, they may not have a real issue with it, but it may come to them too that I want to sell my property and there's something here that could interfere with how I do that. So anyway, it's just a thought. I don't have a real question. It's just something out there that will have to be decided when you come up with how you determine how to impose something on an after the fact, when it's determined not by the person who built it, but by maybe the county who goes out and sees something, whether it's planning, assessor, those folks. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Next. All right, seeing no further public comment, I will close the public comment session of this public hearing, and I will bring it back to the commissioners. Gentlemen, any questions or comments on the language and the application fees as it's put before us today?
No. One point, when the rules were written and the original land use code was actually put down to paper, the commission was seeing surveys that were off a little bit, so we added that variance in there and the setbacks of 50 feet, because at times some of the surveys were off that much and more. And that was put in there, and the variances were set there to alleviate those fence lines. Another one that was brought up was line of sight around intersections, so people weren't building close to those intersections and traffic coming up could see around those buildings, so we were having a few accidents at that point in time. But with the advancements in technology and surveying, we're more finite in what we're doing, and we're finding more and more, and variances are going to come and go as they are. And even with discussions now with the assessor's office with satellite imagery and software, we may even see more in that. So I think this is an addition that probably should be made to our land use code.
The other thing that I want to bring to everybody's attention also, and it was somewhat addressed in the public comment that just came up, but the land use has been changed. I was specifically here when it was changed, and we relieved that 50-foot setback to 30. So we've already taken a step of 20 feet to move those setbacks even closer to give people more room to do what they need to with their property. And 30 feet, if you come up to an intersection, a car's not 30 feet long typically, and you still have line of sight that you can see. So 30 feet was acceptable. Most intersections are built flat so that you can come up to them. They're not, some are, but not many anymore, are either on a hill or a down sloping. So that was looked at. I think we did that in 2020, Don, maybe 21. I can't remember.
2020.
So we've relieved them a lot. However, we continue to get these variances of just throwing the land use code out. I think even if you're a newcomer, you're probably getting the land use code from your realtor. So the information is out there. I think it's just a lack of looking at the land use code specifically, or just ignoring it. And I think that's the situation that we're in right now. What actually prompted this was a variance to a variance, which is absolutely, I did it once, I got away with it, so I'm gonna do it again, and that's what we're trying to fix. I guess I'll stop there. Commissioner?
Well, personally, I don't think these fees are gonna deter anybody from keeping doing this. That's my problem. I don't think these fees are enough to keep anybody from just ignoring it and then coming in and asking for a variance later on. That's where I see that this is a problem. And I don't,
One thing I'd like to add, commissioners, as we kind of have this conversation, is part of what, from my perspective, what we're trying to accomplish by adopting these criteria about variances is we're trying to specifically define what variances are, and by implication what they're not. So, what these regulations say is that the purpose of a variance is to allow a landowner to use their property kind of at the same opportunity as other landowners, accounting for special circumstances or conditions such as exceptional topographic conditions, narrowness, shallowness, or the shape of a specific piece of property, including easements and rights of ways. And so partly what I think that does is it clarifies that the variance process is not the process for enforcement of the land use code. And there are other options available to the board through county court and district court actions for enforcement of noncompliance. And by clarifying that distinction, my expectation would be that the board would stop getting applications for variances in the way that maybe had been the case in the past, that we're really clarifying by adopting provisions like this that a variance, is a specific tool basically to allow development of, the short version would be just odd pieces of property that, with the typical threshold standards, they might not have the same opportunity to develop their property, whether it's the topographical conditions or easements or rights of ways, that it's really a very specific mechanism that has not been defined in our land use code that's what we're really trying to accomplish here from my perspective.
Correct, and I think that we understand that, or we do. I think planning and zoning understands it, and I think obviously planning understands it. This is going to give a clearer direction of what an applicant is going to look at or be able to see and read for the path forward if they need a variance or an after the fact variance. But there's also a consequence to the violation, which is not what we're talking about right now. This is just the variance language. It's not the consequence to the variance, because there's going to be, well, depends on what you're trying to do. It could be a significant consequence to the variance, specifically if it ends up in court. So I guess that's my concern, that everybody needs to know, is that there's going to be a consequence to this, because that's what's not been happening. It has been in the past. So I think that's what we have in front of us right now, is the language change to the land use code as far as a variance and an after the fact variance.
What was input from planning and zoning? Did
Well,
they-
since variances don't go through them, some of them would prefer that they do, but all they have is a recommendation, so, they're not required to go through P and Z, and I don't think that's necessary either. They feel kind of the same way that, I mean, their proposed fee schedule was that a variance was $500 and an after-the-fact variance application fee was 5 times that, $2,500. The people just, and I don't know what they're, 50% of the time we hear that the realtor just said, oh, there's no building codes in Montezuma County, you can build wherever you want. Which isn't the case.
And
We
there's
sent flyers to every property tax owner in the county for property tax year 2024. If you want to build something, you contact planning. It's on our website that if you're going to build, you need to check the land use code. You need to contact our office. So you can just ignore it. Then when you get caught, there ought to be some consequences.
And there will be a consequence to the violation, I think is what you're saying, Stephen. It can go all the way to court, and it can go all the way to be made compliant, which could be tearing it down or moving it. Is kind of what I'm getting from you from a legal aspect. Is that correct?
You're on the right track, but what I'm really trying to distinguish is that this variance process that the board's contemplating adopting, what this really is it's a door for development of a property to be in compliance with the land use code when it otherwise almost couldn't be because of the specifics of that piece of property. That's really what the variance is as a legal tool. And so what I am hearing some of in this conversation is that there is and I'm aware that there in part has been applications brought before the board maybe that were broader than that. And my input is really to try to distinguish this, where if we have a very narrow piece of property or a piece of property with a big pond on it, that would affect how that property could be built. Or if there's a mountain on it or something similar like that, a very steep slope, from properties that are just not in compliance with the land use code. Part of adopting this is clarifying that, from my perspective, really, if I just build if I build my house on the property line and I'm not in compliance with the land use code, that doesn't meet the criteria for a variance. So that's not an application that I would expect to be seen in asking for a variance for that building on the property line, if that's just where I chose to build it. Really, there's different tools that the board has available, basically directing the county attorney's office to prosecute these violations in county and district court. And there are fines that can be assessed in that context. And that's the regime for pursuing noncompliance of the code.
Okay.
And that
So-
makes sense, because we've got several old subdivisions. We've got Highland Terrace, we've got several up the Dolores River Valley that you physically couldn't build on some of those small lots that were developed. So And we've had several variances addressing those, which makes it so that they can actually use a lot that they've owned for 20 years and retired and want to actually build on it now. This gives them that avenue, so that makes sense.
Path forward, so, okay, anything else, gentlemen? So this is just a change to the land use code as far as 9104.
Yeah, right. This is,
That's all this is.
yep.
It's not about a consequence to the violation because those are already laid out. And we can then move to achieve those within those consequences of the violation.
Yes.
Okay?
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
I move to accept this addition of a variance and after the fact variance section to the Montezuma County Land Use Code as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the addition of the variance and after the fact variance section to the county land use code as presented. Any further discussion?
So on that motion, Commissioners, I will get together with Don Haley in the Planning Department. We'll put together a new resolution for the board to adopt that includes these additions, and that'll be the updated land use code at that point. So we'll get that together by next Tuesday.
Okay, with that addition of the resolution. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll close this public hearing.
All right.
So we will now deal with what's in front of us later on.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Okay, now we'll open up the public comment session of this regular meeting. The Board of Montezuma County Commissioners welcomes you to this meeting. Person speaking during public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, or depending on the number of people wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all the members of the public the opportunity to address the board. When addressing the board, please state your name and address for the record prior to providing your comments, and comments to individual supervisors or staff are not permitted, and participants may not yield their time to others. And with that, the public comment session is open.
Good morning, everyone. Alan Mays, 21693 County Road 21 in Lewis. A couple of months ago, I made mention of activity on my county road of gravel trucks going up and down that road, and asked, so why is that happening? And the question was because no one lives up that way where some of that activity was going on. And I think that road improvement is good, but I think more of it needs to stay where there is already development so that those folks can have a better life with good roads in front of them. After I made that comment, Road and Bridge came and addressed and said that, well, that area had been on his plan for some time, and now the weather conditions had allowed that they get out there and do some work. Again, it's out in an area that no one lives out there. So what's the plan out there? Is there something that we're not aware of, that there's properties that, wow, there's money coming in for development? Is it land, what is the word I'm looking for? Affordable housing? What's going out in the county? But for the last 7 weeks, there's been 5 gravel trucks going up and down County Road 21. They're doing a heck of a job of compacting County Road 21, so I don't think if we get a real wet precip period that we'll have any rutting, because those trucks have pounded it pretty good. But again, I guess that's why I would like to see more of the departments come to the commissioner meetings and give a more opportunity to address the public and say what we're doing. I can call Road and Bridge and ask them where they're putting that gravel and why. But when you see a road that does get gravelled, and again, there's no no homes out there, what is the real purpose behind that? So I don't know what kind of response I will get. But anyway, that's my point now, and I would like to see more of the departments come. One last thing, Pueblo County, they had a measles situation, and so the Board of Commissioners is the Board of Health, and I'm sure that there's some kind of plan made for when something comes up. There's no prevention plan that can address this if someone does have the measles and comes into our county, but we need to be aware that there are possibilities of things happening. So just wanted to bring that to the attention of the Board of Health. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next.
Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners and everyone else. My name is Lori Mott. I'm a retired teacher and volunteer firefighter EMT. I'm here today to represent and summarize a letter written and signed by Montezuma County citizens. We are a group of Montezuma County residents concerned about the future of this county and its residents. While changes are to be expected whenever national leadership shifts, some changes currently in place or proposed appear to have especially dire consequences for the economics of this county. We would like to ask you for your help in petitioning Congressman Hurd's office to address some of these concerns. Public land layoffs. If the public is deterred by a reduction in services or facility closures, they may visit in fewer numbers and the economic output may be drastically reduced. If public lands were to become restricted in access, people may not move to Montezuma County to work and live. Medical care. In Montezuma County, 36.12% of the population depend on Medicaid for medical care. Reduced Medicaid and Medicare could lead to the closure of our hospital and nursing homes. Child care. Mesa View Head Start provides child care to families in Montezuma County. Head Start relies on federal grants to operate. Parents could be forced to not work if they don't have child care. Agriculture. Grants and loans to local farmers are in danger of being canceled. In addition to the pause or elimination of government payments, the deportation of migrants may have a detrimental effect on farmers and ag-related businesses. This topic is not on the letter that I'll present to you, but I'm very concerned about the destruction of the Department of Education and funding of local schools. We already have a teacher shortage, and the reduction of federal funding to support students and teachers will further harm our education system. I realize that we're not feeling a lot of these impacts currently, but I believe in being proactive instead of reactive. And as I always taught my students, prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. So when you communicate with Congressman Hurd, please keep our concerns in mind and advocate for the citizens of Montezuma County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name's Lori Hall. I live at 13221 Road 32 in Mancos. And I'm here today to bring to your attention some of the impacts on our agriculture community as imposed by current policies in the Trump administration. I'd like to read this letter that basically summarizes some of the issues that we're facing. I do work with the Montezuma County League of Women Voters, and that's how I came to participate in this issue.
Can I get you closer to that mic?
Sure, sorry. The Montezuma County chapter of the League of Women Voters is actively tracking the impacts of funding freezes and firings implemented by the Trump administration. A subgroup was formed to research the effects on our local agriculture community. Following is a summary of these findings. This is by no means a complete accounting of the programs and people affected by funding freezes and firings, and some scenarios may have changed in recent days. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in federally funded grants for water conservation, climate-smart commodities, soil health, technical assistance, conservation equipment, community education, and more for Montezuma County are frozen. Some federal and non-federal employees have lost their jobs or suffered cutbacks. $5.5 million in federal funding to the state of Colorado for the local food purchasing agreement, which benefits disadvantaged groups, has been cut. In 2023-24, this program paid Montezuma County farmers $242,000 for food that was distributed to food assistance organizations in our region. The decision reverses a December announcement from the USDA pledging $1.13 billion investment nationally to continue the programs in 2025. In 2024, the Southwestern Water Conservation District joined with local partners to apply for funding for 17 projects in southwestern Colorado and was awarded $25.6 million. Some of these funds from the Bureau of Reclamation have been released. Some are still frozen. $2.5 million of these funds were earmarked for the Mancos Conservation District. The Specialty Crop Block Grant is a USDA program administered through Colorado Department of Agriculture. Some local ag producers have gotten the green light to receive funds, while others have not, sowing much confusion about how to plan for the season. Proposed federal budget cuts pose a major threat to our residents in Southwest Colorado in many ways, one of which is that Medicaid funds. Just 30 seconds?
That's okay. You can just submit the letter.
Okay,
We
thank
can
you.
get it for the record. It can get to Ms. Purcell.
Great, thank you very much. We only ask that you advocate for our ag community with our local and federal representatives.
Okay.
And here is the full report. There's a little more detail. And additionally, here is a letter signed by many of our Congress people regarding that local food procurement agreement.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next. Okay, seeing no further public comment, I will close the public comment session of this meeting, and we are going to go straight into unfinished business. First off, we have a Extension Advisory Committee appointment. We did have a presentation in our workshop yesterday. We have 2 vacancies. One has submitted to reapply, which is Abdel Barada, if I said that properly.
Yes.
And he is ready to come back on and to serve his second term. So any questions or comments, John?
I would so move we reappoint Abdel Barada to the Extension Advisory Committee.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to appoint Abdel Barada for a second term to the Extension Advisory Committee. Is there any further comment? Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next up, we have a general fund reserve policy resolution. Mr. Dobry, this was also presented, so if you want to see more detail, you can watch our workshop for yesterday that is recorded on YouTube. Go ahead.
A quick summary of this resolution is that it's to establish a goal of 1 year of general fund expenses to be kept as the Montezuma County general fund balance, and then to direct the administration and budget committee to work towards this goal for 2026 and subsequent year budgets. It's guidance. It's not a formula that is strictly held to. The one other thing I did want to add is that for the 2026 budget, we would be looking at the 2025 general fund budget. So that is currently $16,319,000. So that would be the goal is to keep a reserve of around that amount. And if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have none. Go ahead, sir. Yep.
I move to approve resolution number 4-2025, a resolution of Montezuma County adopting general fund reserve policy.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to accept resolution number 4, 2025, a resolution of Montezuma County, Colorado adopting the general fund reserve policy. Is there any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next up, we have a discussion as it was related to the finalizing a 2012 land exchange with the Dunn Living Trust, Highway 184 and Road 23. We actually have a commissioner to the left of me that was here during that time, who was able to shed a little bit of light on this yesterday as far as the little triangle sliver that we have. That was the only thing that got transferred and not the rest of the road. So it was presented yesterday, and I think, Stephen, if you have anything else to add, I think this is pretty straightforward. We need to clean it up to make sure that the rest of that property is included in the new resolution for adoption.
That's correct, Commissioner. This is really just correcting what was essentially an administrative oversight when the board did this land transfer in 2012. And so with that discussion yesterday about that green triangle, we discussed kind of the process of what that looks like at this point, starting with a new survey of this property, and then we'll need to do some paperwork essentially to get this all straightened out and get that last section that was supposed to have been transferred to the property owner here finally in their possession.
So I don't think we need to, other than give you the direction today, we'll vote on the resolution when you get it prepared for us in front of us today. Is that correct?
Right. I don't think the board needs to take any
Action?
action. The board in 2012 authorized this land transfer, but I think it was helpful to have that discussion, just clarifying the board's position on the green triangle section here and how to deal with that. And I expect it may take some weeks. I don't know exactly what the timeline's going to be for getting the survey, things like that, but this will be back in front of the board for another resolution, just to reiterate that we're fixing the land transfer, and then also that we're also transferring that green triangle that had been transferred but was not included in the 2012 resolution.
Okay, we have your direction. We'll be waiting for a resolution as soon as we get the surveys. All right, moving on to new business. Ms. Frizzell, we have a couple liquor licenses to be presented today, and the first one would be for the Montezuma County Fair Board.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Frizzell. I am from Montezuma County Clerk and Recorders. I do the liquor license and special events for Montezuma County. The first one is a Montezuma County Fair Board that's going to be having a special event at 30100 US 160 in Cortez. It's going to be from July 25th until August 2nd. I have a letter from the sheriff said he would not be able to do the security for this, so you guys requested them to go out and try to find a private one. And we have two letters, one from the Cortez City Police that is willing to help out with that, and also we do have one from the Memphis Marshal that they're going to be able to help with security also.
Okay, very
And
good.
that was the only issue on that one, so.
Okay, I would so move we accept the special liquor license application for the Montezuma County Fair Board to be held at the Montezuma County Fairgrounds, 30100 US Highway 160 Cortez.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the special event liquor license permit for the Montezuma County Fair Board to be held at 30100 US 160 for the fair as the dates presented. Is there any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the next one we have is for the Ute Mountain Rodeo.
Okay. So Ute Mountain Rodeo is going to have their event at 30100 Highway 160 in Cortez from June 12th, the 13th, and the 14th. I have a letter from the Sheriff's Department that he will be doing the security for that event.
I move to approve this special event application for liquor license for the Ute Mountain Roundup Rodeo at 30100 Highway 160, Cortez.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the special event liquor license permit for the Ute Mountain Rodeo Club to be held at the fairgrounds at 30100 Highway 160 as presented. Is there any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, and the next one is for Echo Basin.
Echo Basin is a liquor license renewal. They are located at 43747 Road M in Mancos. And I have a letter from the sheriff saying there's been no violations for Thomas Carr or for the business at Echo Basin.
I would so move we accept the retail liquor license renewal application from Echo Basin LLC located at 43747 Road M is in Mancos.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the retail liquor license renewal application for Echo Basin LLC located at 43747 Road M, Mancos, Colorado. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank
you,
you, Jerry.
gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, next up, Mr. Dober, we have a couple of transfers. One is for senior and transportation bus repair, one is for the capital fund, and one is for the contingency fund. So we will go in that order.
Okay. The first transfer order number 4, 2025, is a transfer of $38,446.05 from the general fund to the Senior Services and Transportation Fund. The Senior Services and Transportation Fund was created after the first of the year this year. These funds were received into the general fund to pay for the reimbursement of the MoCo bus transportation repair before the first of the year. So the expenses will be paid, the balance of the expenses will be paid out of the Senior Services and Transportation Bus Fund, so we need to transfer those funds over. There was, before the end of 2024, $14,658.02 was paid out, but the balance that still needs to be paid out is $38,446.05.
Okay,
I would so move we approve order number 4-2025, transfer $38,446.05 from the general fund to the Senior Services and Transportation Fund.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to accept transfer order number 4, 2025, a transfer of $38,446.05 from the general fund to the Senior Services and Transportation Fund. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next.
These next two are related to the resolution that the board approved earlier. The first is order number 5, 2025. That is a transfer of $6 million from the general fund to the capital fund for future capital expenses.
I move to approve order number 5-2025, a transfer of $6 million from the general fund to the capital fund for future capital expenses.
Second.
been moved and seconded to accept transfer order number 5, 2025, the transfer of $6 million from the general fund to the capital fund for the future capital expenditures. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Robert, the next one.
And order number 6, 2025, is a transfer of $1 million from the general fund to the contingency fund. The contingency fund in general is provided by Colorado state statute. It's to provide for expenditures caused by an act of God or the public enemy or any contingency that could not have been foreseen in the budgeting process.
I would so move we approve order number 6, 2025, transfer $1 million from the general fund to the contingency fund to provide for expenditures caused by an act of God or the public enemy or some contingency that should not have been reasonably foreseen at the time of adoption of the budget.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept transfer order number 6, 2025, a transfer of $1 million from the general fund to the contingency fund to provide for expenditures caused by an act of God or the public enemy or some contingency that could not have been reasonably foreseen at the time of the adoption of the budget. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, we're going to jump right down into our reports. County Attorney, I'm sure you have something to tell us about Ironwood.
I do. I've got updates on several of the civil matters that the county is involved in. There was a sheriff's sale scheduled for the Ironwood property middle of last week and I had sent Naomi, my legal secretary, over there to see how it went. And while she was there, it was just her and the attorney who's representing the party who was bringing that sheriff's sale on a different lien, different issue than the one the county's involved in. But they got word that Ironwood reportedly had filed for bankruptcy. So Naomi left the sheriff's sale. Her understanding was that they were going to have to pause the sale till that was sorted out. I've been in touch with Shelley Hickerson, who's the attorney we've been working with from CDPHE. She's going to be meeting with the Attorney General's Office Bankruptcy Division to talk about how this is going to impact the county's litigation and our impacts, and how it's going to impact our efforts to get that property cleaned up, essentially. So I don't have a good idea of how that's going to work at this point. It's kind of a new variable that I hadn't looked into previously. So my plan is to just basically follow up with Shelley after she talks to those bankruptcy attorneys and get a better understanding of what that means for the county. There were also some updates in the Kelroy Newman case, which is the jailhouse death case that the county's a defendant in. Basically, the court issued a bunch of orders deciding different issues on summary judgment. For purposes of this conversation, I think it's just important to tell the board that basically the issues have been narrowed quite a bit as a result of those rulings. So the case is still on track for trial in 2025. Some of those issues that were originally raised were resolved. Some of them were resolved in favor of the defendants, including the county. So overall, that case is moving through the process. Some of those rulings were in the county's favor, and that litigation's going to keep moving towards that, that trial date in early 2026, I guess it is now. Another update I have is Mr. Anderson was kind enough to fill in for me at the counting of the ballots for the unionization of the FOP here in the sheriff's office. I believe it was also reported in the paper. The result was unanimous for unionization. So technically we have a short time still to follow up on some challenges, but I don't anticipate doing that given the strong vote in one way. As for next steps, I've talked to some other county attorneys. I have also talked to a law firm that we reached out to who kind of specializes in this area. And what they told me was basically how this moves forward from here can take different amounts of time depending on, you know, where the FOP is and how they want to deal with it. So that'll just be something that the board will be involved in moving forward as far as any negotiations with the union, but we don't have an exact timeline. We're sort of waiting for them to come to the county on that issue. As for my week last week, I had the 2 law students here from DU who were shadowing, you know, seeing what legal work looks like out here, which was interesting and fun for me to participate in. I hope they thought it was a worthwhile experience. I know there were also some students down in Durango for this alternative spring break project. Try to involve them in some of the different things we had going on. And it was a busy week for me. That I was surprised how tired I was at the end of the day. But I think it was a good and worthwhile thing. I had quite a few court appearances last week. This week I've got child protection hearings on Wednesday and also on Friday.
All right, any questions for Steve? All right, thank you, sir. Travis, we have payables.
Few things prior to getting to the payables. Addressed useful public service issues at the fairgrounds. Had some conversations regarding mag chloride distributors. Addressed some JBBS grant. I think staff is going to work with the sheriff's office on some of that funding. The job description for the superintendent should be out sometime today. We're trying to spread the word far and wide. Addressed the teen maze. They wanted to reincorporate it. I think that program is better served to be incorporated by probably the school districts or maybe another 501c3. BHA funding, that was discontinued. We have submitted our reimbursements for the expenses we provided to the CIP program, but that funding is no longer available. We are currently looking at some iSolved software for HR. I think it's going to help streamline some onboarding, payroll issues. So we are currently looking at that. We'll have another meeting here in the near future. Again, attended the collective bargaining on Friday. Late night phone call regarding the sheriff's deputy and the significant accident on 491 and M. We're glad everybody is okay in that. And then an emergency meeting with CCI regarding the public health funding and the COVID funds being discontinued almost immediately. So, and then as it relates to the payables, do you want me to go through each line item or just the totals?
I think just the total, Travis.
So January grand total, $4,369,336.89.
Have any questions on that, gentlemen?
No.
Okay.
Let me find it.
Commissioner Copenhaver has them.
Okay, go ahead, Gerald.
You got them both.
I moved to approve the payables for January 1st, 2025 through January 31st, 2025 in the amount of $4,369,336.89.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the payables for Montezuma County from January 1st to January 31st, 2025 in the amount of $4,369,336.89. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 December payables, $3,760,570.84.
I move to accept the payables for December 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024 in the amount of $3,760,570.84.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the payables for Montezuma County from December 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024 in the amount of $760,000 $540.84. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And lastly, gentlemen, February, $3,714,918.93.
93 or 98?
98, sorry.
I move to accept the payables for Montezuma County for February 1st, 2025 through February 28th, 2025 in the amount of $3,714,918.98.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the payables from Montezuma County for February 1st through February 28th, 2025 in the amount of $3,714,918.98. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that is all I have, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you, Travis. Kim, do you have anything for us today?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lindsay?
Yes, not much to report on. Do have quite a few people calling in regards to upcoming planning issues, and once again, I'd like to remind everybody, we cannot comment, review anything on that till it's presented before us. Other than that, the city went to city council, not much happening there. And we did have a workshop yesterday, and that's about all I have.
Okay. All right, thank you, Commissioner Copeland.
Last week, the town meeting for Mancus was actually canceled because they didn't have a quorum, so they didn't have a meeting last week. Thursday evening and Friday all day, I spent at the water meeting for Southwest Water Conservation District in Ignacio. Had some presentations on the Colorado River negotiations between the upper and lower basin states and where that's headed as far as those negotiations. Becky Mitchell, the actual negotiator for the state, was not there, but her assistant was. And he gave us a presentation of where they were basically at with their negotiations and how often they were meeting, and hoping to get something figured out between the states themselves rather than the Bureau of Reclamation doing it. So it's got to be done in the next few months. So either that or it'll go back to the Bureau of Reclamation and they'll make the decision. So they've got to figure something out with this thing if we want to. But there is some, I think, actual progress made by the lower basin states, because the Bureau of Reclamation actually come up with a figure that they could actually, we've always felt like we've had to release that 7.5 million or better acre feet out of there, and they put a projection, and depending on the level of Lake Powell, that it could go down to less than 6. So I think that actually should get some attention in the lower basin. I'm hoping to make them come to the table at more negotiable, not just holding out. So we'll see what happens, but there's going to be some real issues going on. There were several other presentations about at that water meeting too. It was actually a pretty good water meeting. I don't think it was as well attended as it has been in the past. Wasn't quite as many people there, but it was still a lot. I mean, they're basically, that big ballroom was pretty full. All the tables were pretty full, so it was pretty well attended.
Okay.
We had two of our new board members from MVI attended, so they could get up to speed on some of the water issues within the state. Both of them attended over there to that meeting, so it was good. There was other representation from over here too. DWCD was there, and so was our water commissioners for the McElmo and the Dolores River commissioners were there and stuff. So it was a good presentation. And that's about all I got.
All right, very good. I'm going to kind of respond, something that Travis mentioned was our special meeting that was held by CDPHE Director Joe Ryan. for our COVID funds, and something I'll have to say that I think our public health department has done real well in reading the emails that was sent back to us after that meeting. And basically I want to just say this is that thankfully the above will have a small impact on us, as we never get optimal funding and always did not opt into funding that didn't fit our community. So that's not going to be a significant impact, or basically no impact to us at all, to get rid of this funding source. So Montezuma County has moved forward, moved past it. I mean, we're in 2025, so kind of a hats off to them for obviously seeing what was coming down prior and in advance to, and making sure that we were not going to be strapped with something that we couldn't deal with anyway. As also he stated, the collective bargaining was voted on by the SO, which is going to be another possible significant impact to us as we go into some of our budgeting issues for the next year. And as what was brought up in public comment, something that we're going to start doing, and we're doing right now, and we have been doing for the past several months, are cost-benefit analysis of where we're putting our money, where are we spending our money. And as it relates to gravel being put in an area that we don't even have any capacity of occupancy out there. So we are noting it. We are taking a look at it, and we're looking at why and where is it going, and why should it be going out there. Because I can tell you right now that we have no applications in front of us of fear of public housing or anything out in the county. That is not happening to our knowledge. We don't have any applications, but we are looking at every department for cost-benefit analysis as it is related to funding in our budget, because of what we're going to be facing, and we knew we were going to be facing this as soon as they were able to put this to a vote. The other thing I want to bring to the attention of the people, and I think everybody in this room probably knows it, but board decisions are made by boards, not one person of a board. So I'm not sure why we always have to continue to say this, but it's just kind of like the land use code. There is a land use code, and when a decision is made by a board, it's made by a majority or a unanimous vote. It's not ever made by one. That's how boards operate and function. And that is where I'll leave that today.
That's it?
That's it.
I have one other thing I'd like to bring up. Giving some of the social media posts and other media outlets, I have been looking at stuff, and I would propose that we create the Department of Imaginary Concerns, and that we appoint Helen Waite to be the head of that. And with that, I move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn this April 1st, 2025 meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for coming.